But I want to go back, before we get to the Trey Gowdy soundbites, I want to replay this montage, this nothing burger montage. Because I have a question about it. Here it is, audio soundbite number 4, just a whole bunch of leftists. This is after the memo had been released.
We remember the big nothing burger of Geraldo and Al Capone's safe.
To call it a nothing burger is probably to elevate it more than it deserves. It is just a nothing.
The memo, a great big nothing burger.
Really just more of a nothing burger.
Nothing burger.
This memo as a nothing burger.
It has been called a nothing burger.
The technical term is a nothing burger.
It's pretty much a nothing burger.
Or is it a nothing burger?
I wouldn't say it's a nothing burger, more of a White Castle slider.
That's the humorist David Brooks, who may not be smart enough, by the way, to do a late-night talk show. Aside from the unanimity, who sent the memo out that it's a nothing burger? And it probably was. They all probably heard somebody they respect call it nothing burger, and they're all just a bunch of copycats. My question is, if it's such a nothing burger, why did they work so hard to prevent its release? If there's nothing to it, if it's all a bunch of mishmash nothing burger, then why not promote its release? And why not quote from it extensively if it's so egregiously wrong or bad? These people worked harder than I've ever seen them work to stop a nothing burger. And it occurred to me during the break, while I was waiting for the next beta release that didn't come, so I opened this hour a slight bit depressed. It occurred to me out there that there still may be some people that don't know what the memo said. I mean, it was only released on Friday, and if you didn't have a chance to be here on Friday and you weren't listening and you had been paying scant attention over the weekend, it's very likely that the details of the memo remain unknown to some, and particularly because the drive-bys are not reporting it. So let me go through my summary again from last Friday, on the spot. That memo came out the moment this program began, not a minute before and not a minute after. And if you don't think that was a coincidence, it wasn't. Whoever released that memo, they could have released it at 10 a.m. They could have released it at 11:30. They could have released it at 3:30. They released it right at 12 noon because they know I am a quick study. And there are essentially 5, and some might say 7, big bombshells in the memo. The biggest one to me, and Mr. Snerdley, have you read any conservative blogs? Which we have many conservative blogs. I don't see what's in this. This is not that big a deal. I'm kind of embarrassed so much attention was paid. We've got more people on our side trying to torpedo it because they hate Trump. They just hate Trump. It's the most amazing thing. They're willing to consign America to just an absolutely horrible course in the future if it means getting rid of Trump. The big thing to me, if nothing else in this memo is true, the thing that is true that's in it, that makes everything else possible, is the fact that this memo, which is properly identified as an opposition research document. In fact, I jocularly said that Hillary Clinton wrote the thing last hour. It literally is true. It is being reported now that Hillary's aides gave information to Christopher Steele that he put into the dossier. So Hillary's team didn't just commission this. They provided data. They provided Steele data points or information that made it into this memo, this dossier. This thing is entirely made up, folks. It was commissioned by the Clinton campaign, who then called Fusion GPS, because the guy at Fusion GPS, Glenn Simpson, knew Steele. They used a law firm to funnel the payments to provide attorney-client privilege on who paid for this. Christopher Steele then never went to Russia. He started calling people that he knew from his career as a spy in the Great Britain era. He called Russians, and they fed him data, and he put it in the dossier, and then he dressed it up and made it look like it was a summary intelligence report with many different credible intelligence sources. And it wasn't that. This was written and compiled as an opposition research document the Clinton campaign could use against Trump during the campaign for the presidency that Hillary and her team decided 24 hours after her concession speech to then use in the strategy they came up with to claim the election was tainted because of Russian involvement. And the dossier was used as Exhibit A. The dossier, again, folks, made up. It's literally made up, false stories, unverified, not corroborated. Not a single element of this dossier has ever been found to be true. In fact, much of it can be factually disproved. This dossier was used. This is the thing in the memo of all other things that nailed it for me. The FBI used that memo, that dossier, as evidence to get a search warrant from the FISA court to surveil Carter Page. And, by extension, anybody Carter Page would be talking to, which would include people at Trump Tower and who knows who else. So the FBI did not tell the FISA court that the primary ingredient in their warrant application was made up. They did not tell the FISA court that it was political. They passed off to the FISA court that this dossier was actual and real intelligence. So if they were willing to do that, then all else, using common sense, intelligence guided by experience, could be possible. If they were willing to take an opposition research document that had been totally made up, fabricated out of thin air, and pass that off to a high court as legitimate intel, then what else could they possibly do? In addition, the FBI included as evidence for the dossier a news article that appeared on Yahoo News. The news article was written by none other than Michael Isikoff, the reporter who wrote the Newsweek Monica Lewinsky story that was buried, that Matt Drudge drug up and published and exposed Clinton for what he was doing with the intern. They spiked it at news. It's the same reporter, Michael Isikoff. The FBI, in order to convince the FISA court that this dossier was real, included in the application a Yahoo News story about Carter Page's visit to Moscow. Now, what's funny about this is Yahoo News used the dossier to write their story. This is a good old-fashioned circle, you know what? Here the dossier is there. Yahoo News uses the dossier to write a story about what it says. The FBI then includes that story with the dossier in the warrant application at the FISA court. The FBI cited the Yahoo News report as evidence to corroborate information in the dossier when the story was written from the dossier. The FBI incorrectly asserted to the court in its application that Steele did not provide information to Yahoo News about Carter Page's trip to Moscow. However, court filings in Britain show that Christopher Steele admitted that he met with Isikoff in September 2016, 2 months before the FBI got its warrant to discuss the trip at the direction of Fusion GPS. This is, folks, this is so incestuous, it's impossible to describe this. The FBI also knew that Christopher Steele, and I just alluded to this, was being paid by the Democrat National Committee and by Hillary Clinton and did not tell the court. Hillary Clinton was paying Christopher Steele. The DNC was paying him to create an opposition research document. The dossier, therefore written and paid for in part by Hillary Clinton, was presented to the court as legitimate intel. The court was not told that it essentially had its origins in the Clinton presidential campaign, the Democrat National Committee. We also learned the FBI spied on Carter Page for nearly a year. The FBI got their initial FISA warrant to spy on Page October 21st, 2016, after he went to Moscow. He spoke to a Russian official who had expressed support for Trump in July of 2016. So Carter Page goes to Moscow, meets with a guy in Russia who had supported Trump, and ergo, we need to spy on Page. This warrant, as I said last hour, was renewed 3 times for a total of 360 days of surveillance. Comey signed one of the 3 renewal applications on behalf of the FBI. Andrew McCabe signed one, and Sally Yates. Dana Buente and Rod Rosenstein each signed at least one or more of these renewal applications. There was never any evidence on Page. Nothing was ever produced. They continue to get this warrant renewed to spy on him, even though the dossier, which was the reason they got the warrant, was a novel. It was a work of fiction. We then learned that the FBI got rid of Christopher Steele as a source soon after it got the warrant. The FBI dismissed Steele because he was bragging about his relationship with the FBI to reporters. The guy wouldn't shut up. He was telling everybody, yep, the FBI has hired me. They like the dossier so much they've hired me to keep digging stuff up. This was after the warrant had been granted by the FISA courts. The FBI said, my God, this guy can't shut up. He's gonna ruin us. And they can him because he won't shut up. He's essentially letting the cat out of the bag. And by the way, when does law enforcement start paying for news? I know they do rewards and that kind, but look how they vet everybody claiming to have news that gets a reward. You start paying, if you're law enforcement, you start paying for tips. Good Lord, you're going to be drowning in these things. When did this start happening? However, the FBI did not tell the FISA court they had fired Steele. The FBI did not admit that the warrant application was bogus because the dossier was not what they represented it to be. They didn't tell the court, as they renewed the application every 90 days, that they had gotten rid of Steele because he wouldn't shut up. And finally, Bruce Orr's wife was getting paid by Fusion GPS. She was working at the, I think, State Department of the FBI. Folks, it's so much more than nothing burger. It's impossible to describe exactly what it is.